Greetings to everyone joining us here today. Welcome to the Helping India Together Fall presentation. We are glad you're joining us to hear about new things happening in 2024 and our vision for 2025. My name is Michael Atchison, and I am the Director of Helping India Together, or HIT. HIT works to support people who are on the margin, people who are susceptible to disease, violence, and poverty. These people face high barriers in life and high walls of social stigma. We serve them by supporting our partners in India who are doing outstanding work in hard places. Joining me here is HIT board member Dr. Anish Kushman. Anish previously ran a hospital in rural North India before joining academia. So he has a rare perspective on the work we do both as a medical professional in India as well as an advocate here in the United States.
Today we will talk about what has been happening this year, as well as our goals for 2025. Effective work has been happening through a multi-tiered approach. But the first step, sometimes the hardest step, is enabling the people in the community to hear you. What I mean is if your suffering is so great, you simply cannot listen.
Well, I can provide an example from the book of Exodus. In Exodus chapter 6, God had told Moses that he, God himself, would free the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, and he would make them his own people. He would bring them into the land promised to Abraham. Such good news! Moses reports all this to the Israelites. Surely they would be overjoyed. But Exodus 6:9 says they did not listen to him because of their discouragement and harsh labor. They were so beaten down and discouraged, they just couldn't hear the good news Moses was announcing.
That's right. Some people on earth today have been beaten down so hard they cannot hear any good news. Within the 7 million people HIT works with is a group known as the Musahar. In English, that means the rat eaters. This population is so marginalized that they don't even exist within the caste system. Basically, they are considered lower than human, and for centuries they have been largely illiterate and completely downtrodden. They've been taken advantage of and cheated and treated as the scum of the earth. How could they possibly trust someone or even hear that anything positive could happen? Like the Israelites, their harsh lives do not allow them to see that any good news is even possible. Yet our partners are achieving substantial transformation amongst these people. So how is that happening right now before our very eyes?
Well, first, our partners address the people's physical problems. This provides relief that enables them to hear. Our partners deliver health care, clean water, proper sanitation, palliative care, emergency food relief, and community health, as well as nutrition. After centuries of marginalization and mistrust, something happens when the people realize that you are for them and not against them. One of the former community health directors, Dr. Rubel, once told us that when they learn that you really do care for them, their hearts just melt. They gain the ability to hear. Then you can go to the second step.
Well, their health is better, but they're still desperately poor. And this makes the people we serve more likely to be victims of debt bondage that can lead to slavery, diseases that can cripple, the physical things that stand in the way of flourishing. So our partners begin empowering them economically in their own communities. Our partners invest in veterinary care of their animals. Now this results in increased reproductive output of their animals, increased milk production, and greatly increased income. Our partners run milk collectives and crop collectives to increase income for their farmers. And they teach the women skills like sewing to enable them to sell products to raise their income.
Right, and now they're ready for step 3. They're better off, but still relatively poor. To change that, they must learn new things. Education gives people new power and income potential. The illiteracy rate in our target population is about 50% overall and much lower for women. So our partners in India invest in elementary, high school, and professional education. And this has propelled thousands into literacy and the ability to earn better wages. Now, one of our most exciting projects has been investing in young women and men to attend nursing school, and this has really been transformative. After completing their 3-year nursing program, they earn much more income than they ever imagined was possible And Indian families are relatively tight with one another, so the nursing graduates often use their new income to send their brothers and sisters to school. And finally, their actions actually serve as a testimony to the community that education is an important step out of poverty.
And finally, each village must own these changes. If our partners ever disappeared, the community needs to own the transformation. So our partners trained village leaders to identify problems, develop solutions, and implement these solutions. They counsel them to be outward looking, to think of others in need, and to find ways to help others. We saw some of the outcomes of this during the pandemic. Food was scarce in the villages. Everyone was hurt, but some were more desperate than others. The village leaders themselves learned to prioritize food distribution to those who are most in need. It may seem small, but that change, the change to look out for others and not just yourself, was an important step in moving from fatalism to empowerment. It is very exciting when the residents of a village learn that they have the ability to implement change.
Amen. Now, here is a 4-minute video that describes HIT's main areas of work. HIT invests in people who are on the margin. We invest in healthcare, we invest in education, we invest in livestock care, and leadership development. These 4 overlapping projects enable people to move from the margins into a life of stability. These solutions don't come easy. Our partners are incredibly tenacious. They've been in the community for decades. They're working hard, always developing new solutions to the problems that arise.
Education is hugely important because among the community that we are working with, education is not even seen as a need. It is non-existent. All the adults are uneducated and illiterate. And so the only jobs that they can do to support their families are to let themselves out as daily wage laborers, where they pluck chilies in a field or work at the local brick kiln.
Some of these communities have been illiterate for centuries, so we invest in education from primary education all the way up to professional education like nursing care, which transforms their lives, their families, and their communities.
These are people who have spent centuries being downtrodden and oppressed and accepting that this is all there will be. And we want to be able to open a path to something greater and bigger for them.
We invest in leadership development in the community. We invest in them in ways that enable them to identify problems, develop solutions, and implement those solutions. And that transforms their entire community, enabling them to live richer lives.
भारतीय ग्रामीण में पशुधन को आजीविका का मुख्य स्रोत माना जाता है और उसको हर एक जानवर को अपने परिवार का जो ये कार्यक्रम हम लोग करते हैं डिवर्मिंग का पशुओं के ऊपर, इसके लिए दवाई के लिए बहुत कम पैसा यूज होता है, लेकिन उनका जो उनके पशुओं पर उसका प्रभाव बहुत बड़ा देखने को मिलता है। कीटाणुनाशक जो दवाई हम उनको डालते हैं तो उनका पशु स्वस्थ हो जाते हैं। पशु स्वस्थ हो जाते हैं तो उनको इनका जो आय मिल्क है वो भी अधिक उत्पादन हो।
Their livestock are really their most valuable possession and their lifeline. Simple measures that address the health of their animals are very inexpensive and transformative for the wealth of the families.
There is a high stigma about particularly mental health. It's considered as quite a lot of burden to have a mental health patient in the house. As a consequence of that, there are thousands of people here in India who do not have accessibility to mental health care. So in order to bridge that mental health gap and to cater to that gap is where the program walks in. Samvedna brings in the hope for mental health for patients in different villages, whether it be a hilltop, whether it be a valley, bringing in hope to their doorstep and letting them know that care is here and we care.
We invest in the hospitals in rural North India that address these problems that many people have in the villages. We are called to serve people in need, and that's why we go to the margins, when we have the joy of seeing people thrive. So let's recap. First, investing in healthcare, clean water, proper sanitation, community health, and so forth provides physical and probably mental relief that enables people to hear that change is possible. Second, they are still poor, so it is important to help them increase their income through veterinary care of their animals and learning new skills to earn money. Third, investing in education enables them to catapult into careers they never thought possible. And fourth, for this to be self-sustaining, the village leaders must be taught the skills of being a good and wise leader.
Good summary. So we know these things work, but our partners are currently only 5 to 10% of the villages in their district. There is so much more to be done.
Correct, and that is why HIT desires to go to the next level. We believe if we can invest more into our Indian partners, they can replicate these principles in additional villages. So why not increase 2 times, 5 times, even 10 times? In the last 18 months, we've invested about $375,000 in the projects we've discussed. Why not double that?
I agree. So to our friends watching, here are our top goals going forward.
So in healthcare, we have 2 mechanisms to dramatically increase what can be done to deliver healthcare in rural North India. First, our partners need more doctors and nurses. Now that might sound very expensive, and by local economics in India it is, but it is much less expensive by Western economic standing. This gives us and the Western Church an economic advantage to bring about something really good for the communities we serve. Second, our partners need to expand their geographic reach, and this can be done by training and employing village advocates. Our partners identify young women and men in the villages with a heart for healthcare and for serving. Then they train them over the course of a year on how to identify those with medical conditions. These advocates then transport the patients to the hospital, or occasionally the hospital sets up a remote site for delivering medical care. The plan is really brilliant as it not only delivers health care to those in need, but it also empowers those in the village since they become part of the healthcare solution. We've seen this program in action and it is impressive. So Anish, what's next?
Veterinary care is critical for the health and well-being of people in rural North India. We found that for only $5, we can treat animals with an anti-parasitic medication that rids them of both internal and external parasites for a year. So for $100, 20 animals can be treated, impacting the lives of 20 families. This program has been remarkably effective. These treatments generally increase milk production as well as reproduction. Villagers who had their animals treated fare far better during the pandemic. Their animals generated much more milk, and the excess was then sold for much more income. Many thousands of animals were treated in the last 18 months by our investment of just $27,000. We hope to double that investment in the coming year. And just like the village healthcare advocates, we would like to train village veterinary advocates in this work too, so that they can own the work. So Mike, what's the plan for education?
Well, education has been a real high point for our work in India. We support education at all levels, from elementary to high school through professional education. One of our favorite education ministries has been nursing education. India has a huge shortage of nurses. As our partners have increased the overall education in their communities, some of the young women and men have the education skills and compassion to be nurses. So here's a brief account of one of our funded nursing graduates. She said, "Growing up, I could see the struggle my dad went through to meet our family's needs. He works our small farm. Over the years, it never once occurred to me that one day I would be working at a hospital. But during one of the youth programs, we were told about the opportunity to pursue nursing education. I didn't give it much thought because the cost of the program was way too expensive for our family. In fact, to keep my high school education going, my dad sold our bicycle and a few other things to purchase our first smartphone so I could continue my studies during the pandemic. My parents continue to work hard, but their willingness to work hard would not have been enough on its own. Without the sponsorship of HIT, which covers nursing school costs and hostel fees, I would never have had this opportunity to study nursing and the dream to help my family and church. So this year, we're supporting 40 women and men to attend nursing school, and we've supported over 120 overall. We hope to increase that because our nursing graduates are employed at hospitals within their own regions at salaries they never thought were possible. We've invested about $110,000 in education over the past 18 months. Doubling our education efforts would enable us to expand this mission, transforming additional families and villages. So, Anish, what's the plan for leadership development?
As our partners expand their work into new villages, equipping new leaders is an important priority. Implementing work in healthcare, veterinary medicine, and education is critical, followed by equipping the leaders to ultimately take responsibility and ownership. Emmanuel Hospital Association provides a series of workshops to help leaders identify areas of improvement, develop solutions to those problems, and implement those solutions. In addition, they teach them about government programs that are designed to help them and teach them how to access those benefits. In addition, many leaders in rural North India have been persecuted for their faith. Our partners help leaders with these problems by providing counseling for them and their families, and sometimes providing economic support for health and legal fees. We have contracted the assistance of people skilled in trauma counseling for helping those who have experienced significant distress. Leadership development is really important, as the goal is for villages to ultimately own all the improvements they've experienced.
Very good. So our goals are ambitious, but we've never been more excited. We hope that you and hundreds of others and thousands of others will be agents of transformation for the impoverished peoples of North India. So here are a few examples of the numerous ways you can join us in going to the next level. So in healthcare, our goal is to raise $225,000. And what that would pay for, hiring additional doctors, nurses, and village advocates, significant facility upgrades. It would fund palliative care, community health care, mental health care, and overall general hospital support.
Veterinary care. Our goal is $55,000. This would cover expansion into new villages, treatment of over 10,000 animals, $100 treats 20 animals, purchase of anti-parasitic medication, training of village veterinary advocates.
In education, our goal is $200,000. This would fund many more nursing students, and it's remarkably inexpensive by Western standards. For only $750, it funds one student for an entire year of nursing school, including their nursing school tuition and their lodging. $2,000 funds a slightly more advanced nursing program, but most of our students do the $750 program. It would also support elementary education of Musahar children, high school training centers, and education at an orphanage that we support.
Leadership development. Our goal is $200,000. This would support counselors for training, online cost work, village leader training, and trauma counseling retreats.
Well, those are our goals going forward, and as I've said, we've never been more excited. Again, we thank you for joining us today, and we pray that you will join us in serving those who are on the margin in rural North India. Will you join us today?